Most writers know exactly what they want to write about, but sometimes we struggle with the material, right? Where do we find material in order to write interesting stories? So today I'm going to talk about how to find material, how to find ideas and inspiration close to home.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Amante. I'm here to give you some writing tips on Fridays, so thank you for being here. And so let's get started. A story does not have to be something that we make up completely out of our imagination. In fact, I would argue that most stories really are not. Most stories come from our real experience, from the things that we live, right? The things that we experience. So how do we use those, and how do we find enough of those in order to write interesting stories, compelling stories that attract our readers? Now, agents and editors, if you go to conferences, if you talk to them, if you read books, they will tell you that you should write what you know. Well, why do they say that? Why do they continue to tell us we'll write what we know? And we might think, well, the things that we know are not that interesting. I don't know that much. I don't have, my life is just kind of boring. I have nothing really to pull from it in order to write. But actually that's not true. We might think that, but remember that whatever you live is unique to you, and most people don't know about it, right? So what might be uninteresting to you will be interesting to the reader or to someone else. And so that's why, first thing, why it's important for you to, use what you have, what you know in order to write. But the second thing is that only you can write about that with authority because you know it, right? And it will come across more authentic. And so again, editors and agents know that, and that's why they suggest that. It's like they know that if you're writing about something that you've experienced, something that you have, a job that you're familiar with, and that you really understand, that it's going to be more authentic. It's going to feel real in the story, and it's going to end up being a better story. So if you are, someone who says, well, I'm just an average person. I have nothing to add. Like I have nothing that I can use in my story. What is interesting about me? I'm going to suggest that is actually the wrong question. So instead of saying, what am I going to write about because my life is so boring and average, I want you to ask, like, how can I use the things that I do know to create an interesting story? So you flip that around a little bit. It's not that you're writing about your everyday life. You're right. If you're just going to write about going to work and driving and the traffic and that kind of stuff, it's probably not going to be that interesting. But how can you use those events, those experiences to create a story that is interesting? So Netflix has this movie called Beautiful Life. I don't know if you've seen it yet. It's pretty cute. It's about this guy who wants to, well, he doesn't actually even want to be a singer. He works as a fisherman, and he wants to rebuild his boat that was left to him by his parents. And but he's a really good singer, and so he he actually plays music or a guitar and writes music for a friend, and then ends up, when his friend freezes, actually singing and gets discovered by this person in the audience, which is amazing, right? Our dream of getting discovered by a talent agent or something. So he gets discovered by a producer, ends up becoming a singer, and so he starts leading the life that his friend really wanted to lead. And so his friend at one point says, you're not even a real singer, you're not even a real writer of music. You're just taking other people's lives and creating lyrics out of it. And I thought, well, yeah, exactly. Isn't that like what we all do as writers, whether we're writing music or we're writing novels? That's what we're doing. We're actually taking real life and creating a story from that, right? We're using those lyrics to create music. We're using the experiences of life in order to write a story. Now, we're not writing exactly the same story, right? We're not writing about getting stuck in traffic, but we can use that inspiration to create something else. So probably getting stuck in traffic isn't the most interesting idea, but there can be something that you write about that. In fact, there was a movie, gosh, what was it? It was a long time ago with Michael Douglas, where he's, this really uptight executive who ends up getting fired, and he's stuck in traffic, and he's like totally frustrated, and he ends up leaving his car and going off and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I don't remember the name of the movie, but right. So that's being stuck in traffic and using that in a story. So you never know what the average everyday experience, how that can translate into a story if you're creative and you think about how you can use it. So how do we do this? How do we find those stories in our own backyard, in our own neighborhood? So the first thing is you start paying attention to what you hear and what you see daily around you. So take note literally of what happens. So what happens is we tend to just not pay attention anymore, right? We see the same thing day after day after day. I remember when I was teaching elementary school, when I just got out of college, and I was teaching in a really rough neighborhood, and I got used to seeing the neighborhood, right? It was no longer, and it was, very run down, cracks on the sidewalks, just, think about the poorest neighborhood you can think of. This is what this school was right in the middle of that. And people would say, I'd stay at work like till 7 o'clock at night sometimes. I was a brand new teacher. I was really enthusiastic. And so I wanted to work, get all kinds of things done. I'd get there at 7 in the morning. I'd still be there at 7 at night, even though everybody was gone. And people would say, well, like, that's kind of a dangerous neighborhood. Like, do you feel comfortable being there? And it's like, I didn't even see that anymore. I didn't see the danger. I didn't see the poverty because I'd gotten so used to it, right? But was there a story there? Could there have been a story there? Of course, because there was all kinds of things going on. There were police sirens going off all the time. There were all kinds of things in the streets that there were definitely stories there. Let's just put it that way, right? But I didn't see it because I didn't pay attention to it anymore. So pay attention to the things that you see every day and think of, well, what story could be here? What could I write about here? And go home and do it. Maybe write little snippets, write little paragraphs, write a page or two about something that you saw and noticed, because you might be able to use that later in a story. The other thing that I'd like you to pay attention to are emotions. So what are some sad things that you've noticed in the day, or some funny things, or some exciting things, or some, whatever emotions you've experienced during the day. Write those down and pay attention to those. So there might not be an immediate story there, but if something made you sad, how does that feel exactly? What about it made you sad? What specifically? Maybe you saw, I don't know, that would bum you out. Maybe you saw an animal that had been hit on the street. That's sad, right? So, what do you feel when you see something like that, or worse, right? You see an accident. That's scary. It's sad. What do you feel? Do you think about the person that's there? Do you slow down when you're driving because you think, wow, it's so easy to end up in a situation like that? Who knows the thoughts that go through your mind. So pay attention to those emotions and write down how you feel. Think about how you feel. Think about how it feels in your body, because again, those are things that you can transfer to your story later. Okay, the next thing I want you to pay attention to are the people in your life and what makes them the same as everybody else, so kind of universal, and what makes people different. So books are ultimately about characters. We're really writing about people, right? And when you study people, you will be able to to write more authentic characters, right? More authentic people that have unique characteristics and qualities and little ticks, or whatever you want to call them, right? So everybody's slightly different, but then we're also the same. So it's important to understand, to pay attention to both. How are we all the same? Because that you want to transfer that into a story, because you want your characters to be relatable to a lot of people. So you want to have that universality of your character, but you also want to make your characters a little unique, because you want them to stand out. You want, when somebody's reading them, that it doesn't sound like a generic person, but that it sounds like a specific character that you're writing. So pay attention to that. Study people. What do you notice about people? How do they move? What are the things that they say? How do they react to things? Pay attention, because again, that is something that will help you when you're writing your characters. Okay, the next thing that I want you to pay attention to, or think about, or maybe try to remember, but definitely as you're going through life, pay attention to it is, what have you lost? Have you lost a job? Have you lost a relationship? Have you lost something that matters to you? Those kind of things, again, everybody experiences. Everybody goes through some kind of loss in their life. A pet, right? Again, a job or a relationship, and nobody likes going through it when it's happening, right? You hate, like, you break up with someone and they break your heart. That's not something you really want to sit and dwell on at the time, because it's painful. However, those are things that you want to pay attention to, because at some point you're going to write something about a character losing something. I've written about characters who have lost all kinds of things. Definitely lost jobs. I wrote one about a character who loved, the person that they loved the most in their life was shot right in front of them and died. So, hard scene to write, but how do you write that? Well, you think about, what did I lose at the time that was important to me? How did I feel? How did it feel to have my heart broken? You write those things down, you think about those things, because you can transfer that into your character. Okay, and on the opposite side, we don't want all negative, right? We also, what have you won? So what have you lost? Bad, right? What have you won? What goals have you achieved that we're happy that you can write about or think about, right? So think about good things, right? Things, jobs that you've gotten. So I remember at one point I decided to do some marathons. So my husband and I were raising money for the Leukemia Society, and then we were going to do a marathon. And it was fun, I guess, in a way, but so we decided to do a bunch of them. But my first one was hard, right? And as I got to like mile 22, I was like, oh, I don't know if I could finish this. This is so hard. I'm, so exhausted. I'm hungry. My feet hurt. I have blisters, right? I don't know if I can make it. So a marathon is 26.2 miles. So, 22, 24 miles, I'm really, really struggling. But I decided to push myself, and, other people were encouraging, come on, come on, come on. There's beer at the end. There's all kinds of fun stuff at the end. You can do it. You've gone this far. You can't give up, right? So finished it. So how did it feel at the end when I actually, made it through the end and people are cheering? It felt great, right? Can I use that in a book sometime? But what it feels like to achieve something when you thought that, you were ready to give up, or you couldn't do it anymore, you couldn't push forward. Yeah, of course, right? You can use all of those things. You can use all those great things where you've done something great, where you've achieved. What does that feel like? How long does that feeling stay with you? Does it, like, the next day, do you still feel as exhilarated as you did when you first got that? Can you use that? So think about those things, right? What good things have happened? What have you won? What have you done great? And what were the feelings that were associated with that? Pausing for a second to let you know about a couple of courses that I've created. If you're a beginning writer and you want some help with your book, I just want to let you know that I do have a basic course on how to write, and I'm going to post it below. And if you're not a beginning writer, but you are more established and you're ready to publish your work, you have your novel written, I also have a publishing course, and I will also post it below, so take a look at it. Maybe they'll be just what you're looking for. All right, let's go back to the video now. Okay, something else that you might want to think about are, have you met any interesting people, like strangers? Like, we go through life, right? And we meet all kinds of people. Some people stay in our lives. Some people are just kind of passing through, or they're interesting. I had a guy at a grocery store one time who just told the cashier, I'm just going to pay for her stuff. And I was like, no, 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 you're not going to pay for my stuff. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to pay for it. And I didn't have a lot. I mean, I had one or two items, but just the thought that he wanted to pay for my stuff. And it's like, no, really, you don't do that. And he says, you know what? You should learn to just to say thank you and accept and be accepting, or something like that. And I thought, yeah, okay. And it was interesting, right? And then he left. And it's like, who the heck was that guy, right? But maybe that was a message, like, yeah, I need to learn how to say thank you, and just say, all right, and not, be resistant to other people helping me. It was a message from someone, somewhere, right? So there are people that come into your life that are interesting, that teach you lessons, or that are just bizarre. Have you gotten weird phone calls? So think about, like, strangers, weird events that have happened, because again, could be interesting, could be useful. You might want to use those in a story. Okay, and last but definitely not least, because there are so many other things that you can pull from your everyday boring life, right, is, what have you sacrificed? So we all make sacrifices at some point for whatever, right? We might sacrifice college education for our children. We might sacrifice, a vacation to care for somebody that's old and needs our help. So there are things through life where sometimes you make sacrifices for something better or for something that's needed. What is, how can you, how can that fit into a story in the future? And again, you don't have to know that now. Just pay attention, write those down, take notes, because in the future, that might be something that comes into your story. You're writing a story and it's just a perfect thing that might fit right in. So what am I saying here? So I'm saying, okay, borrow from your own life, right? Pay attention to the things that are happening. And it's not just the events. It's feelings that you have, or people that you meet, or experiences that you seem normal and routine, but most stories are really about normal and routine things. And we have to be able to translate those into a story. We have to be able to write those into our story and allow the reader to re-experience maybe something that they have already experienced, or feel something that maybe they haven't experienced, but it gives them an idea. Maybe they are lucky and they have never lost anything. Maybe they have never had their heart broken, but through your story, they can feel what that feels like. So we either allow them to re-experience something they've already experienced, or to feel and learn something new. So we may think there's nothing from our everyday life, that, writing what we know is really not possible because we don't know anything. But you know a lot because you're living and you're experiencing things. And those are the kind of things that you want to put into your story. Okay, so remember that for most of us, our life is really pretty routine. So whether you're, an FBI agent or a fireman, most of life is routine. And so by being able to write about those routine things and make them interesting and put them into stories around all the exciting stuff, right? So a firefighter could be fighting a fire, and that's your exciting scene. But what else is going on? What else is going on in his life that he is dealing with? Maybe he's, got other issues. Maybe he's got a sick child. Maybe he's got other things. And that's where your experiences can come in, and you can add that and make it into a deeper, richer story that that readers will enjoy. So I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that you think about it, and I hope that you think about your own life and your experiences differently, and that you start putting them into your stories. Start writing them down and adding them, kind of weaving them into your plots. Okay, and if this has helped you, please again hit the like button, the share button, the subscribe button, all of those buttons, so that you can come back and see me again next week. Bye-bye.